Let's take you to the UK now. Candidates wanting to succeed Liz Truss as the Prime Minister have just 2 hours left to gather the support of 100 MPs in order to run. No one has made any announcement yet, but Rishi Sunak and Penny Mordaunt are seen as contenders. The UK should have a new Prime Minister within a week. Truss resigned just 44 days after taking the reins from Boris Johnson. Let's get the latest now from our UK correspondent, Olly Barrat, who joins us now from London. Olly, quite interesting. She has now become the shortest-serving Prime Minister of the UK, in history. But of course, her hand was forced because of what happened to the economy because of her policies.
That's right. I think Liz Truss has known herself and people around her have privately been aware that since that mini-budget and the effect it had on financial markets and then all of the U-turns that were required afterwards, that really her political authority and credibility had been damaged to such an extent that it was only a matter of time in terms of how long Liz Truss was going to be able to hang on. There were all sorts of plots being worked on by Conservative MPs who were trying to remove her, and then what we saw Wednesday, Thursday was just various episodes of political mismanagement of the Conservative Party that just showed party discipline had broken down, her authority had broken down, and so she realised on Thursday that the game was up and announced that that resignation would be forthcoming. So she is staying in post in a similar way to Boris Johnson did until a successor has been chosen. What's different this time around is that it will happen much, much more quickly. It won't be drawn out over many weeks in terms of a leadership campaign. We will know who the next Prime Minister is going to be by around this time next week. And actually, it could happen much more quickly than that. It's entirely possible that when we get to Monday of next week, that we only have a couple of candidates. We have one round of voting from MPs or thereabouts, and we could have a name by the end of Monday. As I say, it could take till the end of next week, but that's the outside at this point. We will know within days who is going to be the next Prime Minister.
And of course, Olly, as you and I were speaking yesterday, you were making the point that she's leading a very divided party, which Boris Johnson also led just before her. So even the next Prime Minister is going to have that challenge.
Very much so, and we're already seeing those divisions emerge with regards to some of the potential future candidates to lead the party. Rishi Sunak is absolutely one of the favourites to take over the reins. He's popular with around half the party. He did well in the last leadership campaign when it was the MPs that were voting. But there are large swathes of Conservative MPs who back Boris Johnson who absolutely want to do everything they can to make sure that Rishi Sunak doesn't become their leader, because they feel that he stabbed Boris Johnson in the back when he resigned from his cabinet. A similar picture is true when it comes to Boris Johnson. He's very popular with some Conservative MPs. Others will do everything they can to stop him getting back into Downing Street. Indeed, some Conservatives are already saying that if Boris Johnson becomes leader again, they will leave the party. The party is very much divided, and whoever does take over will have a huge task on their hands in trying to paper over some of those cracks. On the plus side for them is that the party still has a large majority in the House of Commons. So if a new leader can retain some sense of authority and discipline in the party, there is potential upside for them too. But it's a very tall order indeed, because the party at times has looked completely unmanageable in recent months, if not the last couple of years.
But of course, she still does remain Prime Minister, although a resigned one, just until a successor is chosen, right?
That's right. Liz Truss is effectively a caretaker Prime Minister now. It won't be for more than a week, but it certainly is the role that she remains in at this point. So what she's done effectively is she's told the King that she's resigning as leader of the Conservative Party, but she remains Prime Minister for now. When that new leader of the Conservatives is chosen, that person will become the next Prime Minister, but it will involve a handover, much like we saw just weeks ago when Queen Elizabeth II was in the last days of her life and Boris Johnson went up to Balmoral to see her to officially resign as her Prime Minister. She then saw Liz Truss and asked her to form a government and become a new Prime Minister. So it's that handover that we'll see again, just with different personnel this time around.
There hasn't even been a coronation for King Charles III yet, but he's already about to get a second prime minister under his tenure. Olly, I don't know if I'm looking too much into it. So Grant Shapps, he started his position yesterday of becoming Home Secretary, right? And he was coming in after being fired by Liz Truss just 6 weeks prior or so to his appointment. So I'm thinking her resignation now, does it make sense now? Because I thought yesterday when we were speaking that Shapps and Truss would not be able to get along anyway because there's that animosity, and now she's resigned.
Yeah, who knows where we end up with all of those different personalities and cabinet roles and appointments that will be coming. Some Conservatives are saying if Boris Johnson becomes Prime Minister, if Rishi Sunak becomes Prime Minister, they would like Jeremy Hunt to stay in post as Chancellor, for example. We are set to have a really important fiscal update on October the 31st, where the Chancellor is due to set out spending plans, spending cuts, borrowing projections, all of those types of things, which it's hoped will reassure financial markets that were spooked when Liz Truss set out her mini budget. We don't yet know, because it depends who's going to be leader, whether that October the 31st date will remain. We don't know who's going to be Chancellor. We don't know whether Grant Shapps will remain as Home Secretary under a new leader. There's so much we don't know at this point, and it all depends on who's going to take over in the next few days and what decisions they have to make. And they will have to make some very, very big decisions very, very quickly.
And anyone on the street, Olly, as you speak to them, are they, are people who live in Britain nervous about this time, not knowing what's happening, what's coming next, while the economy is also underperforming?
Yeah, all of the polling will tell you there's a great deal of anxiety in the UK at the moment for individuals, for households, for businesses, about the state of the economy, about inflation, about the cost of living, about energy bills, about all of these things. And this political uncertainty doesn't help those nerves, that anxiety. And many Brits want just a period of stability, a period of calm. At the same time, many voters will tell you they think there should be a general election. You would have to assume that whoever does take over as leader of the Conservative Party is not going to be inclined to hold a general election anytime soon, given the state of the polls, in which the Conservatives are miles behind the opposition Labour Party. So that might mean that a general election is some distance away, but certainly for many Brits it is a time of instability, and many hope that the period ahead, whatever happens, is going to be slightly more stable, and perhaps that we won't see another changeover of Prime Minister quite as quickly as we did this time around.